We are live. We can begin.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Professor Alka Kriplani, Director and Head, Department of Ops and Gynae, Paras Hospitals, Gurgaon. I bring you greetings from Gurgaon, and it's a pleasure to be communicating with you people. We know it's a very sad time, very difficult time for all of us, but we gynecs are so positive. So we are using this time in investing in knowledge. So in this endeavor, now I'm going to be discussing with you in the next 40-45 minutes or an hour, the very newer and a very difficult problem faced by us gynects, that is cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy. This is the place where presently I work for the past 1.5 years. And we are going to discuss cesarean scar ectopic pregnancies. We have gathered reasonably good experience of managing since at All India Institute. We used to get lot of referred, and the same thing here. I'm getting lot of referrals of all kind of scar ectopics. So I'll share with you my experiences, how they present, how exactly we should go for investigations, confirming the diagnosis, and how there are so many modalities for management. So we will just discuss how best to manage with the evidence. So what is cesarean scar pregnancy? It is implantation of gestational sac into the myometrial defect at the site of previous uterine incision. So once you have done a cesarean, in that scar, if the next time pregnancy, instead of being implanted in the endometrial cavity, gets implanted in that scar, it is called as cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy. When I was years back, decades back, I never heard of this problem, even though so many cesareans were being done. So it is relatively in the last decade only, and now we see so many cases of cesarean scar ectopics. So the exact incidence is not known because many places we are unaware of this problem. So how can we diagnose? But somewhere people have expected that the incidence is 1 in 1800 to 2000 of all pregnancies, and in 1 in 500 in cases of previous cesarean scar. Previously, we were using the term scar niche. Then now it is a cesarean scar. Now this rising incidence is alarming. As I was discussing with you when I was years back in my practice, I hardly saw any cesarean scar ectopic. And now you see there is so much of literature, so much of this thing coming up that it is becoming, I think rather than becoming common, detection has also improved. So globally it is seen. Every year I go in laparoscopy American AGL conference, and there was a whole session few years back. So I said, I wanted to understand how they get so many cases. And then they had large series. So globally there is rise in the incidence of cesarean section so as to cesarean scar ectopics. And important reason maybe now we are able to diagnose them by proper imaging like transvaginal ultrasound, 3D. MRI is a very good modality to diagnose. So having index of suspicion, knowing there can be this problem, and then good investigative facilities are a reason that we are witnessing so many scar ectopics. So once a patient comes to you with amenorrhea, pain, bleeding, or nothing, they may be asymptomatic. How do you diagnose that this patient may be having cesarean scar ectopic? So there is usually history of previous cesarean section. On ultrasonography, uterus is empty and you see the clearly visualized endometrium. Cervix is also empty because if it is in the cervix, it will be called cervical pregnancy. And gestational sac is seen within lower uterine segment at the site of the LSCA scar anterior. And myometrium between gestational sac and bladder is thin or absent. So there are different criteria I'll be discussing further in the lecture. Less than 5 millimeter is definitely a thin scar. And if you put on Doppler, you see all around the vascularity of implantation. Suppose there is a differential diagnosis, it is a case of inevitable abortion. You won't be finding all the Doppler color around it. Then there is sliding sign. You push with the transvaginal probe. If it is in the process of abortion, like incomplete or inevitable abortion, then it will slide off. But scar ectopic will not move because it is implanted at the site of scar. And MRI is a good modality to confirm the diagnosis, especially T2. So what are the types of caesarean scar ectopic? This is very, very important because it carries lot of management planning. So they are of two types, endogenic, exogenic. If pregnancy gets implanted on the scar, it may grow, it is tangled in the scar, but it may grow more towards cavity. So it is called endogenic. And common sense that it is less supposed to be less dangerous. It grows towards uterine cavity, even can reach viability, and risk of massive hemorrhage is lesser. And suppose it grows exogenic, I'll be showing you a couple of videos of all these things. Exogenic, so it invades scar towards bladder, and it is more serious type because once it ruptures, there is maybe huge risk of intraperitoneal bleeding, and there are cases where even that it reaches up to the bladder or perforates it. So these are the two types. You will hear many times when I take lecture, colleagues get up and say, Madam, you're doing laparoscopic. We manage so many cases with hysteroscopic or simple DNC. These are the endogenic types, which are more towards the cavity. DNC may be more successful. And in the management, I'll discuss these issues. What are the modalities and where to use what. So why people get ectopic pregnancy in the scar of cesarean? There are some high risk factors, like somebody is having multiple cesarean sections. So there is large surface area. In my experience also, previous 2-3 scar, they are more common to have scar ectopic because there is larger scar area with poor vascularity and scarring. Then cesareans done for breech when lower segment is not well formed, and changes in surgical technique. This is very important, colleagues. Few years back data came that single layer closure is sufficient, but soon we realized that second layer covering Lambert, especially if the patient is a primary or she wants to have more children, it is always a good idea because it gives you a stronger scar and a thicker scar. And impaired healing, like a patient has post-op infection, she's diabetic, she's collagen tissue disorder patient. So if the healing of the scar which you have given her is not proper, then they have, and healing is impaired, that scar harbors the higher risk of having ectopic pregnancy in it. Now, once we have seen these cases come, another from clinical point of view, we all are interested how best to manage these patients. So there are so many modalities. I'll just name them. You can manage them expectantly. You can manage with medical. You can manage with surgical. And majority of time, it becomes a combined approach. One modality fails or people feel secure using one modality and going to other. So if your patient presents with a ruptured ectopic, she's having hemoperitoneum, there is nothing conservative. You have to take up the patient and you might have to do hysterectomy for her. A patient is hemodynamically stable. She comes to you with the ultrasound or MRI diagnosis of scar ectopic. Or if she's high risk for, like she comes with pregnancy bleeding, you get ultrasound and you see the gestation at the scar. So what are the options you have to manage her best? You may choose to do nothing, but this approach is very serious. It is only when the beta HCG is very low, pregnancy is failing, patient is very stable, scar thickness is good. So very few patients because you can't take risk. Medical. Medical, we all know we have large data on medical management of ectopic, tubal ectopic, all that can be applied here. So systemic methotrexate, local methotrexate, potassium chloride, I'll discuss where, and of course these misoprostol and all these agents which have been used for tubal pregnancy for medical management of scar ectopic. Among surgical options, starting with the D&C, whether hysteroscopy guided or blind, then excision by way of laparotomic hysteroscopy or laparoscopic or uterine artery embolization, and there are reports of HIFU also being employed by some researchers. So on, as I said, combined treatment is very common. So what are the options we have in medical management of scar ectopic? We all know methotrexate is number one, the drug of choice. We had lot of studies showing good efficacy of methotrexate in tubal ectopic with so many inclusion criteria strict to be adhered to and do's and don'ts. So how to use this methotrexate in cases of scar ectopic? So usually it is given by systemic route, because to my mind, if you give local, every local injection is like intramuscular, it gets absorbed, then only it comes back to that site. So, and secondly, if you are intervening, needling too much, you may injure a vessel, a naked vessel, and there may be bleeding. Having said that, which are the cases where we inject? It is when caesarean scar ectopic is alive. You see the fetal heart. And as you all know, the alive baby, there is so much of trophoblastic proliferation. So what in our practice, we started years back, whenever caesarean scar ectopic used to come alive ectopic, we used to kill by injecting KCl in the fetal heart so that the trophoblast invasion goes down and simultaneously give her systemic methotrexate. So advantage is it is less invasive in nature than the surgery, lesser expertise may be required, but the disadvantage of systemic or this methotrexate therapy is it has high failure rate. There may be hemorrhage when you are following the patient with beta HCG, and it may take several weeks or months to complete resolution. And some people tried concurrent bilateral uterine artery embolization or D&C. We will discuss that issue later. And 80 to 90% of success, some majority of studies, 60 to 70%, depending on at what period of gestation she has reached to, how she has been managed, but not all can settle on medical therapy. And during medical therapy, for that long follow-up, you have always the risk of patient having rupture of that and coming as hemoperitoneum and in acute emergency. I'll discuss few cases of mine. These are the cases where beta HCG load was very high. When I was at All India Institute, we used to get a lot of these cases with such high load because people used to, feel that they should go to tertiary. And one of the patients, her beta HCG was 50,000 and she had previous 3 cesareans. And one patient, 34 years old, had 2 cesareans and beta HCG was 2,97,000. So, and these were their ultrasound findings, which confirmed scar ectopic. In both the cases, endometrial cavity and cervical canal were empty, bilateral adnexa were normal, and fetal heart activity was documented. So this is what the video clip of the case. Transvaginal, all those colleagues who are doing IVF, they will agree, just take on the IVF table, ovum pickup needle, use that. And we used to inject KCl in the thorax of the fetus and killing the fetus so that the trophoblastic burden becomes less. So counseling is very important. So counseling is very important, telling the patient what she is, and we never used to have GA for this procedure under local anesthesia, KCl 20 milliequivalent, very little amount till your fetal heart disappears, and simultaneously give her systemic methotrexate. So this was our protocol for alive babies in caesarean scar ectopics. to intrasac KCl to kill the baby, and then follow with methotrexate, single dose in such high load likely to fail. So usually multiple variable regime as we used to use in cases of vesicular mole. See, the needle in the transvaginal ultrasound is guided towards the fetus. You can watch for 3-4 minutes. Many times you will see fetal heart, bradycardia is there, stand still. Even after 3-5 minutes, fetal heart comes back. So wait for some time till you are sure that you have killed this baby. And this is what? Another patient. So all those IVF setups are ideal. You can just, as we do fetal reduction, you can just take a needle and pass it through the guide into the sac, then into the fetus, and deposit the KCl 20 ml equivalent 2 to 3 in early, otherwise up to 5 ml with a 17 gauge needle, and wait for some time for the fetal heart to disappear. Following which you follow the patient with beta HCG, and in such a high load, often our patients required multi-dose management. That is 1 milligram per kg alternate day with leucovorin rescue, and 4 dosages are given. And both these patients settled. So in the outcome, this is very important. I wanted you to see this chart. From 2,97,000 to come to normal, it took in this patient 119 days, means 4 months. And in the other patient, again 2 to 3. So this is the problem. Higher the beta HCG load, usually longer it requires for the until HCG is negative. You have to follow patient very diligently because there may be rupture, and patient may come with acute abdomen with hemoperitoneum. So this is the price one has to pay for non-operative, but then it is ultimately patient's choice, your experience, and very important follow-up. Where does she live? Can she immediately come to the hospital? Whether you can keep her admitted for some time, or her educational status, social status is such that she can be brought fast to the hospital if some catastrophe occurs. So these are the issues when you are doing medical management, you have to keep in mind. Now coming to surgical management, and everybody has their own ways. As I discussed, there are so many modalities, but being a laparoscopic surgeon, I am now very comfortable in even my team. Laparoscopic management in cases of cesarean scar ectopic. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to show you all the minutities of how, what are the do's, what are the don'ts, and how to increase the success of this treatment modality when you get a patient of cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy.
This is the laparoscopic view of cesarean scar ectopic. Uterus is manipulated vaginally using Hulka.
See, if you put a Hulka and lift it, the basic problem occurs is bladder is very badly adherent in that area. So you have to first, initial cases I used to fear because I used to see reports in the literature that they have got uterine artery embolization. So we started doing laparoscopic beforehand uterine artery coagulation or clipping. So that cutting off the blood supply to the uterus or minimizing the blood supply so that logically patient will bleed less. With increasing experience, we have realized it is hardly 50, 100, 200 cc blood loss. So now recently we don't do our incidence or our frequency of ligating uterine is become less and less because our understanding of managing these patients have improved. Second step is you dissect the bladder very nicely. This is the most important step to my mind because once she starts bleeding heavily, and this is diluted pitresin injection. So this is a combined modality. Otherwise, nowadays we just put little bit of pitresin. It leads to vasoconstriction, and don't perforate the sac. This is a case of live ectopic pregnancy. You see, be patient, dissect the sac. So if you have not perforated and gently with the help of suction and blunt dissection, you can dissect nearly majority of the sac And then I am opening the sac. You see the fetus is coming out. See, whole fetus has just been killed. I think it was alive when came out, and removing all the placenta and fetus. All the trophoblastic tissue needs to be removed properly. Edges have to be nicely freshened, because otherwise if she, and this is one thing I learned, could do a nice good dilatation and curettage, your patient will very fast have become negative with beta HCG and will not bleed in the post-op phase, because there is lot of decidual tissue in the endometrial cavity. And we always believe in closing in 2 layers, because if this patient further wants children, then it is very important that I give her a tough scar, so that the next time she does not rupture and should not land up in cesarean scar ectopic. After that, we peritonize properly, and this is what another video. This is a patient where the fetus was not alive, but it was a around 8 weeks pregnancy, just giving pitresin. As I told you, colleagues, most important is dissect the bladder nicely down, because once you give incision, she starts bleeding, then there is risk of bladder injury if you don't put the bladder at the initial part of the surgery, far and away. Tell your assistant to put a hulka, something, so that you lift the uterus, so that you have lot of space. You see, it becomes so easier and safe, and give the incision exactly on the previous cesarean section site. If I find too much of fibrosis, I'm giving a little bit of incision to go from the scar area to non-scarred area, and then dissecting the gestational sac diligently and removing whole gestational sac along with the little bit of musculature with the scar. See how it is embedded in the musculature. So remove all placental tissue, otherwise you may have a residual ectopic, and freshen the edges of the scar so that you give her a strong scar, because this is the scar where there is fibrosis and healing will not be so good. Upper edge, lower edge, nicely. If there is scar niche, you have to take care of it. Usually it is, and this is what lower incision margin is being freshened. And what I have seen majority of cases now, they are documenting in literature, if you are giving very low scar, if you are giving very low scar like cervical, that decidua nature prevention of that stickiness is not there. So there is higher risk of, to my mind, of scar ectopic in those cases where you give a cervical scar, especially in late labor patients. So this is what I'm using Barb suture number 1, and this is in 2 layers starting from one edge, as we are doing in exactly Lambert in cesarean. So you give patient a tough, nice, strong scar, and tell her not to become pregnant at least 6 months. And once the scar has healed, and then peritonization as we do in cesarean. And this is, I'm checking for the bladder integrity. If the ectopic was too near to bladder, it is a good idea to check integrity of the bladder to rule out injury. And this is a hysteroscopic view. See how nicely lovely chorionic tissue at the site of previous cesarean section scar. And this is what many times you will find very, very bad adhesions of the anterior abdominal wall with the scar. So you have to be very careful. As I said, go in the paravesical area, delineate the bladder. See, I have just opened the bladder fold and the whole scar ectopic is pushing out. It is a very big burden scar, 9 weeks ectopic pregnancy. So bigger the pregnancy, more careful you have to be. And see the huge cesarean scar ectopic at that site. So what I am doing, paravesical, nicely dissecting. This is the vagina and there is ulca. So this is the whole cesarean scar ectopic, colleagues, in the site of previous cesarean scar. Give an incision at the site of previous cesarean section scar. The moment you give incision, you will see the trophoblast embedded to varying depths into the myometrium, and painstakingly dissect and remove all pregnancy tissue. And you need not enlarge one of the ports. We have learned, put a ovum forceps, this is, see the cervix, And this was a very low scar given in the previous cesarean. So we give all these pieces, somebody takes through ovum forceps from down only. So those 5 millimeter punctures, you need not increase it when you are doing cesarean scar ectopic. The material can come out. See, you have to take care of the niche. And this is what, after freshening the edges, nice 2-layer closure. If patient doesn't want further childbearing, then tubectomy can also be offered at the same sitting. So this is what was a big cesarean scar ectopic managed with this laparoscopic approach. With our increasing experience doing them, once there was 3 scar ectopics at Paras Hospital in 1 week because of the large referral base and because you colleagues keep sending these cases, and they all go home in 1 day or the same day and hardly any blood transfusion required. But for that, you have to really, over the decade, a lot of improvements have occurred in our understanding. Initially, we were very scared, so we were ligating uterines. We were scared that literature says they bleed so much. Gradually, we learned how to approach and how exactly to operate these patients. Again, this is another scar ectopic where there are bad adhesions. So first you do adheolysis. Unless you release this adhesion, band of adhesion, which is often at the, so you have to go paravesical, dissect nicely, release all adhesions. That is the colleague's secret of success of good scar actor. And then see all the big vessels, ureter, everything is out of sight. See, this is the ureter. So you are, and this is the uterine because it was such a big and she came with so much bleeding. So ligating or coagulating the uterines to cut off the blood supply. And after that, once you have nicely delineated the sac, you have to take out this band, otherwise you won't be able to work down. So dissection, releasing the adhesions, freeing the uterus, and you will see in a minute this scar ectopic was just short of bladder. And there was hardly any myometrium. See, this is the moment I have given really done adheolysis, you see a big sac of ectopic pregnancy. This is the complete sac we could remove with the fetus inside, amniotic fluid, and the placentation. So this is what the fetus is coming out, in all probability alive, because see the fresh. And so you have to dissect out and remove the sac, complete removal of sac and all trophoblasts diligently. And see, there is hardly any myometrium, and it was just up to the base of bladder. So we are filling the bladder with saline to check for the integrity and to check for the boundaries. And now, after nicely dissecting the sac and freshening the edges, this is a Hehulka instrument inside, or whatever you may put it, dilator or something. Otherwise you may not suture through and through in these cases, and he may not later develop hematometra or discontinuity in the canal. So you have to, very often if the case is like that, we leave a Foley's also and inflate the Foley's. It is very good hemostatic and to maintain the patency of the canal. Very low scar somebody had given, case of previous multiple scars, and bladder is very near. But this is what, so very thin scar in the lower part. So 2-layer closure, try to give as strong a scar as possible. And usually they don't bleed. If so, this is what, if it was a big burden and there was hardly, bladder was too close, so we did cystoscopy to check for bladder and remove the fetus through enlarging a port. So these are all the options. You have to decide case to case basis. This is what is important. Once you do a cesarean and there is isthmocele. What is isthmocele? And nowadays, being I get so much of referral, we operate lot of these isthmoceles. How patient presents? She has history of 1 or more cesareans. Typical history, patient comes, madam, after my periods for many days, I keep bleeding. What happens? In the scar area, there is denting and a sacculation. That we used to call it in hysteroscopy scar niche. So it is a dent in that scar area. So once she has periods, some blood gets collected in that pouch kind of scar niche isthmosele. It may be smaller, it may be bigger. Very important to know what is the thickness of the myometrium above the niche. So the distance of that myometrium between the canal and the bladder, so that you see how much scar thickness is left behind. That is very important to prognosticate. Thinner the scar, higher are the chances of repeat and early rupture. So this is a case of operated by I did hysterectomy because she had multiple fetuses. There are cases where they have endometriosis, fibroids along with isthmosele. We repair that. I'll be showing you lovely videos of isthmosele repair. So isthmosele repair can be done hysteroscopically if it is a milder. You don't have to resect the niche area very much because it is very thin. You have to remove the band of fibrosis around so that you are flattening that area and the blood doesn't get collected in the next period. These patients present as infertility also because that collected blood in that isthmosele area, it deters implantation. And IVF colleagues send these cases to me that you operate, remove the isthmosele so that results of IVF will be better. So these are the cases I'll show you. This is a patient who was referred to me, previous cesarean, wanted a baby, secondary infertility, and see bad adhesions in that area. MRI showed a big sacculation and thinning of the scar above that. See, this is the bladder, fold is in the bladder, hysteroscopy, exactly mapping. See, on the right side in the area of scar, I'm going in another cavity. It is and this is the endometrium. Maybe this is the hormone effect or she's in progesteronic phase. Otherwise, nothing serious. This is the cavity of the uterus. Now I'll come down anteriorly and you will see another kind of cavity, big isthmosele on this side. See, this is whole isthmosele where menstrual blood gets collected. Then gradually after her periods for 5, 10, 15 days, it keeps coming as blackish discharge, annoying discharge. And this is in the canal and I have come out. This is a very good way. You put light. This is the MRI showing, nicely showing. And this is, put the hysteroscopic light. It will very nicely delineate how much is the area of isthmosele, where exactly is the isthmosele, and how much is thinness. See, I am marketing, somebody is showing me from below. Lovely demarcation of isthmosele and see in the center how thin is the scar. So now I have delineated the isthmosele. I will open the isthmosele and in a minute see how thin it was. I'm just into the cavity and this is a manipulator being put inside the canal. It is always a good idea to put manipulator. It guides you so much. And this is the lower edge, where that was the upper edge. This is the isthmosele I'm resecting out. And after resecting that sacculation, repair it so that the scar is reasonably smooth if you when you do repeat hysteroscopy. Not that every patient requires repeat hysteroscopy. Symptomatic relief is the best guide. And this is on a catheter. I repair it. I leave the catheter for some time. And usually isthmosele is at the angles. That is why we keep teaching angles should be dealt very nicely at the time of cesarean. But then in spite of all precautions, these complications happen. Nothing can be done. Only thing we have to, this patient had adenomyosis. So I removed her adenomyosis, also infertile patient. And this is the end view. So you see the nicely repaired isthmosele. Next case is very interesting. I will show you. In the OT, she was taken again, patient of secondary infertility, first cesarean, baby died, no alive issue. She was desperate, so we wanted to do everything. Check, do chemopertubation that the tubes are patent, check if endometriosis to correct it. And this is that patient's laparoscopic view. See, this is her isthmosele diagnosed by a good MRI. This is her hysteroscopic view. Cavity is far beyond. This is, I'm in the isthmosele, huge isthmosele, huge isthmosele. This is the laparoscopic view. And in a minute, you will see lot of adhesions. They say in the retroverted uterus, isthmosele develops more. And this is what endometriosis. She was a case of severe endometriosis. So don't do the mistake of just hitting on to the Caesarean scar ectopic or isthmosyle. First you release, unless I release and make the uterus mobile, I won't be able to do a good job with the repair of isthmosyle. So I checked the bowel, removed all these endometriosis, did ovarian cystectomy. Now we are going to, and you see there is a catheter for checking her thromoperturbation. Nothing has been done anteriorly, and tube is patent, and anteriorly you see what you will see. Yeah, catheter has come out through isthmosyle because the overlying myometrium was so thin in this patient. If she had become pregnant by God's grace, she would have definitely landed up in early rupture or Caesarean scar ectopic. No cauteries had been touched, nothing has been done. And when we poke the patient, they don't give papers, they don't have papers, they don't give history. She had bladder injury in the previous Caesarean. See how densely the bladder is adherent. So we did adiolysis of the bladder, nice dissection of the bladder down, remove all fibrotic scar tissue around isthmosyle and remove that sac, and then repair the uterus in 2 layers so that she can become pregnant in next pregnancy and hopefully gets a good alive baby home. So what are the complications? If somebody has Caesarean scar ectopic, 30% will miscarry in first or second trimester, and it may lead to placenta previa and accreta. This term accreta again is very, very dicey, because all of you who are dealing with patients at the time of Caesarean section with placenta accreta will agree with me. I have very large data because again getting referrals from so many friends. Sometimes you feel in these cases why you took up gynae. They bleed like hell, and often they have to resort to hysterectomy as life-saving. So it is somehow a continuum of the process. A Caesarean scar ectopic, if it is undiagnosed or is of milder nature, or if it is asymptomatic or has some bleeding patient ignores, these cases in second, third trimester will be like placenta accreta. And then placenta accreta, you know, in third trimester near term, it derives blood from all surrounding areas, and it becomes a very, very messy, bloody business when you operate these patients. So it's very important to diagnose Caesarean scar ectopic early, because if it is undiagnosed or if it is missed out, it may present as placenta accreta. Delay in diagnosis may be potentially catastrophic. So, and early invasion into myometrium can lead to rupture and massive hemorrhage. But if there is lesser or invades myometrium and pregnancy is uneventful, it leads to placenta accreta, which we all know, and it is dreaded complication. So complications of placenta accreta, we all know, they bleed a lot, leads to morbidly adherent placenta. And even if we ligate internally, like the majority of blood supply is coming from the floor of pelvis. So that is another topic. Sometime other time I will discuss, because we have very fairly good experience of managing these cases. Our mistakes taught us a lot, and we improved really a lot in our understanding. The benefit all we should share with all our colleagues. So after discussing all these modalities, hysteroscopic excision is for milder endogenic type, where it is inside the cavity. If the BCG load is less, patient doesn't want to become pregnant further, or the hysteroscopy, you see the defect is very mild, very early pregnancy, less SCG load, we can do hysteroscopic excision, or we can do hysteroscopy guided DNC. So with minimal invasion, your patient will settle. Otherwise, majority of situations, laparotomy or laparoscopy. See, if you do laparotomy, nothing wrong. The principle of surgery is the same. Laparoscopy is just a change in approach, that you want to be minimally invasive. Otherwise, if you do laparotomy, to my mind, with laparotomy going deep in the pelvis, visualization is further difficult. With laparoscopy, somehow you feel much better in dissecting the bladder, and the things you see like getting internal iliac or uterine arteries easier with laparoscope, because the moment you put the scope through umbilicus, you just see that area. So it becomes more surgeon friendly, provided you are properly trained and sufficiently knowing the anatomy and trained in laparoscopy. And simple DNC is not recommended as a sole procedure, because I have had patients, one patient came with 8 blood transfusions. Every time she came from China, every time she was going to somebody, they used to do ultrasound. They say, you have retained products of conception, come, we will do DNC. They did DNC, she had torrential bleeding. And because it was in the scar, so how it will come out with simple DNC? And the patient used to require twice, thrice she had these DNCs. And then when she came, we did her laparoscopy ectopic excision. So treatment success depends on surgical expertise, depth of overlying myometrium, and strategies to reduce vascularity, like giving vasopressin previously, and many centers they uterine artery embolization or uterine artery ligation to reduce the blood loss during surgery. And scar revision is important if you want your patient to become pregnant further, because unless you revise the scar, there is higher risk of again landing up in cesarean scar ectopic, and the thin scar is a risk factor for rupture. So laparoscopic management has the advantages. It confirms your diagnosis. There is better visualization. You see everything nicely. Repair of defect is properly done, and preservation of fertility, especially if it is desired, it is better to excise the scar and do a nice 2-layer repair. Blood loss is minimum, and hospital stay with laparoscopy is so much shorter than open surgery. These are the systemic reviews in the literature. People have tried medical, systemic, local, systemic plus local. Some people give methotrexate. After a few days, they do DNC, or they do laparoscopy, or they do laparotomy. Some people get the patient's uterine artery embolization done, thinking that she should have, especially if your MRI shows or your ultrasound shows she has developed AV malformation or vascularity in that area is very high. So people think that way. But uterine embolization is not a procedure which should be taken lightly. Facilities are not every place, and it is quite expensive. So everything has to be kept in mind, and it depends where you are working, what is your understanding, how much facilities you have, what are the facilities for endoscopy there. So these are the factors. And hysterectomy also has been. And once you do hysterectomy, but then fertility sparing cannot be achieved with that. So these are the results and everything showing a certain success, but with increasing experience and in the literature realize that doing a complete job like nice excision, laparoscopic or laparotomic, especially if the fertility is desired, it will correct your defect also in the same sitting. So these are the analysis, meta-analysis. So these are the results of DNC ultrasound guided. It is not that the somebody is good in DNC, so should do DNC in all. Somebody good in laparoscopy should laparoscopy in all. You have to see the patient. You have to see how much is the beta HCG load. You have to see what are her requirements, whether preservation of fertility, and seeing everything, you have to take a decision. And as I said, majority of people do combined approach. They will either get UAE done, or they will give some methotrexate. Some people will kill the fetus so that the trophoblastic invasion is less. Nothing wrong in that. So one has to make their own choices. To conclude, friends, caesarean scar ectopic incidence is increasing. As I said, in 1 week, once I did 3 patients, all different kinds. It's a life-threatening complication. Early and accurate diagnosis is crucial to give good results. Management, one has to really individualize. We still do histo or DNC or lab-guided procedures in definite situations. So medical or surgical depends on the case. For endogenic, by and large, hysteroscopy can go along. For exogenic, laparoscopy is the choice. If subsequent pregnancy is desired, lap repair should be preferred because you don't want her to land up again. And early ultrasound in subsequent pregnancy is the key and is very, very important. Tell your patient, next pregnancy, repair, no repair, she is high risk for scar ectopic. At the earliest opportunity, one has to rule out that she has not landed up again in ectopic. Then colleagues, one has to avoid unnecessary cesareans because these cesareans have these placenta accreta and cesarean scar ectopics are very ugly complications we are witnessing, and techniques of cesarean section. This I think I can take during question and answer session, because what are the do's and don'ts that may reduce the incidence of cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy. And this is what, once I joined, left All India Institute, joined Paras Hospital, and I used to get literally every week the patient of cesarean scar ectopic from all over. So we thought that we have to educate not only colleagues, our patients also. So we called our patients, we did a press conference, we released it through the social media and all, and following which there was a lot of benefit. So many cases were referred and they all got with taking advantage of the experience that they all were taken care. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And now I'm open for question answers. Any question you have, it will be a pleasure to answer.
Yeah, ma'am. We can go for the question and answer session. Okay, yeah. So the question is from Sumita Lakshmi. She is from Vellore. Need the ultrasound description and picture of a scar ectopic. She needs a ultrasound description and a picture of a scar
Very
ectopic.
good, very good. Picture I showed you initially, and the description is that there are 4 or 5 signs. Once the patient is of cesarean scar ectopic and you are doing ultrasound, transvaginal ultrasound is the preferred modality. And first thing, uterine cavity should be empty. Cervical canal should be empty. And then you see the gestation at the site of previous cesarean section. It is very important just not to document in the report that there is pregnancy in the scar. You have to tell how much is the thickness of the scar. So one must measure thickness of the scar above the ectopic, which carries lot of prognostic significance. Then, as initially I said, maybe Sumita, you joined late, there is a fireball. There is vascularity around the sac in cesarean scar ectopic. If it is intrauterine failing in the process of incomplete or inevitable abortion, you will not see that vascular ring around the sac. And thirdly, if you move the probe, sliding sign, if it is inevitable, incomplete, the products of gestation will slide along. But if it is ectopic, because it is embedded and fixed, sliding sign will be negative. So these are, and tubes should be normal, adnexa should be normal. So this is what, to rule out ectopic, cervical, and endometrial in utero pregnancy, see the pregnancy on the scar. And then very important, whosoever is diagnosing your cases, tell them many times they don't know radiologists. We have to tell them, colleague, always send me the thickness of the scar and always mention whether it is endophytic, endogenic or exogenic, because it carries a lot of importance for us to take our management plan. Endogenic means more towards cavity it is growing. Exogenic, it's going more outwards and they are more risky. Thank you for this question. Very good question.
So the next question is from Anuprit Kaur Chawla. She is from London. What is
Hi,
the
Anu.
yeah?
Yes.
What is the percentage of total cases which could be managed by hysteroscopy and DNC?
This is a very good question. She wants to know, if somebody has managed 100 cases, how many will be hysteroscopic, how many will be laparoscopic. And no, this depends on at what kind of patients you are getting. As I said, being a tertiary referral, you get the toughest of the cases. Many times colleagues may not even properly diagnose, do DNC, patient may settle. So for patients which have failing pregnancy, very early scar ectopic, even expectant may work out. So doing DNC in those will reduce the burden. But now our understanding of the subject has improved so much that with good MRI, good TVS, we exactly know what we are looking at, how much is the HCG values, very high HCG value, a live pregnancy. They usually always go for laparoscopic approach. Hysteroscopic approach is for endogenic and very early failing, and it depends what kind of cases you are getting. So if in your practice you in a level 1, you usually will get all the mixed kind. In my practice, majority go for laparoscopic unless they are with lesser load and endogenic. So I would say 20 to 25, 30% will be hysteroscopic, and majority laparoscopic, because often these patients are wanting to preserve their fertility for further childbearing. So then it is a very good idea to revise the scar and give good repair to decrease the recurrence of caesarean scar ectopic. That is possible only with laparoscopic approach.
Okay. So the next question is from Alpana Kansal. She's from Ghaziabad.
Mhm.
In TVS, needle is passed through OS or through fornix?
Very good question. Through fornix, and next is what? Os.
Through
No,
OS.
not through os. Okay. No. It is exactly you are doing ovum pickup, that needle, that guide in the TVS, and you don't go through the canal usually. You just go like as you do ovum pickup.
Okay, so the next question is from Geeta Ramnath. She is from Hyderabad. How to differentiate between a scar atopic and low-lying sac?
That is what I told you, that sliding sign. Low-lying sac is in the endometrial cavity, the anatomical differentiation. And you should have asked me how to differentiate from cervical pregnancy, pregnancy in the cervix. That is again the level below the os in the canal.
Okay, so the next question is from Rutuja Hantodkar. She is from Jalgaon. Can blood collection in isthmus cell lead to endometriosis?
Very good question. Number of times I have seen endometriosis, but I cannot comment because it requires generating more and more data. And logically, endometriosis is backflow of the blood in the peritoneal cavity. Here, the menstrual blood from the endometrial cavity gets collected into that pouch of isthmocele. So, why it should lead to endometriosis? But I cannot answer this question because answer is not known. But common sense says should not be. But in laparoscopy, I showed you one video also, because endometriosis is so common. So number of times I see association of both. Patient has endometriosis and this thing.
Okay, so the next question is how to manage scar pregnancy laparoscopically?
How to manage? I showed you so many videos, but I will again repeat. Anybody can manage. You have to have few things in mind. Lift the uterus by an instrument in the canal. This will make your life, colleague, so simple. The bladder will be there only and the canal will be high. We use Hulka always, or a big dilator or a curate, so that the distance, and you nicely see, I showed in my video, the lower segment gets up from the bladder. One is that. Always dissect the paravesical area so you delineate the bladder. The biggest fear I see when I train people, and the fear is they may not, injure bladder, because in these previous scar cases, bladder is badly adherent in that area. So if you go from lateral to medial, you will not find it difficult. And as I said, nicely dissect the bladder and everything. If you think she's going to bleed, like it, you try, give pitresin. And then all these surgical steps, which I keep teaching again and again, they make it really easy. Oh, doing these cases first 20, 30, 40, 50, now have realized I feel very happy doing and teaching caesarean scar ectopic to my fellows, because it is like mathematics. You standardize steps, you are unlikely to have complication of bleeding.
Okay, so the next question
And
is from
always do DNC at the end. Your beta HCG will fall very fast because there is lot of tissue which comes out the decidual.
Okay, so the next question is from Shobha. She is from Bengaluru. What are the causes of isthmocele?
Very good question. As I said, I think she was listening very carefully. Isthmocele is a defect in the area of caesarean section scar. So what can lead to defect in the scar? One, patient profile. Patient is diabetic, infected, collagen, healing power is bad. Technical aspects. Nobody knows for sure, but at least if you repair the caesarean scar in one layer, logically the thickness of the scar may be less. So caesarean scar ectopic may be higher. So always repair the scar in 2 layers. The suture material used for repairing the CS scar. That is a lot of controversial area. Nobody knows what, but one thing is there. Don't do locking of every suture, which many people do, because it leads to ischemia. Ischemia leads to scarring. Scarring leads to fibrosis. Fibrosis leads to less vascularity. Less vascularity leads to weaker scar and caesarean scar ectopic. Thirdly, what is the indication of caesarean? If lower segment is not well found, like in breech. And fourthly, colleagues, what I have learned in my cases, the scars given are very low. If you are in habit of giving a very, very low scar, like in the cervical canal, what my understanding is, nowhere it is given in the literature, that the decidua is very preventive to adhesions. That's why you take out the baby, uterus involutes, patient resumes periods nicely. But the area of that cervical canal area where decidua is not good, it may be sticky, it may lead to fibrosis, and that scar in that area, maybe that stickiness is there, because in cases we have seen given very low scars were high incidence of caesarean scar ectopic. So never give cervical at very low, especially it happens in very late labor. You tend to give a very low scar, should avoid that. So these are the high risk factor for, and nobody exactly knows. So suture material, suturing in layers, technical issues, and patient profile, and patient who doesn't heal properly for any reason, like she's diabetic or she got infected. All these are predisposing factors for isthmocele. And isthmocele is a predisposing factor for caesarean scar ectopic.
Okay. So the next question is from Dr. Lata Gupta. She is from Perry. Causes of scar pregnancy and how it can be prevented.
Tejas, I must compliment you are reading the questions very clear and very loud nicely. But I just got a phone call and I forgot what was the question. Sorry.
Okay. The question is from Dr. Lata Gupta. She is from Perry.
Mhm.
What are the causes of scar pregnancy and how it can be prevented?
I told you causes of scar pregnancy. All this caesarean section is one. You do caesarean and she is high risk for scar pregnancy. And all these in the last question I answered: vascularity, technique, patient profile, where you give scar, what suture material you use, don't do too much locking. All these factors are responsible for isthmocele, in turn scar ectopic. So, and two things I will tell my colleagues: don't give very low scar, and second, repair in 2 layers. And don't do all the locking of all the sutures. It leads to ischemia of tissue, and ischemia leads to fibrosis and weak scar.
Okay, so the next question is from Miss Vandana. She is from Mumbai. In lab management of CSP, when to do DNC before or after suturing CSP defect?
Very good question. We always do before suturing, beta. Once you have sutured and then you start pushing, your suture line may get loosened, no? So under direct vision, you saw in the videos, under direct vision, when the scar is open, then we do nice DNC and take out all the tissue. All the scar ectopic tissue we give from canal only, with the ovum forceps assistant takes out, and then we suture at the end. Very good question.
Yeah. So the next question is from Dr. Sakshi Chopra. She is from Indore. Should we
Nobody
do
is from Delhi or Gurgaon?
Greater Noida?
Okay.
Yeah, the questions are to be answered. Okay. So then, yeah. So then there are the lots of questions. So the next question is from Dr. Sakshi Chopra. She is from Indore. Should we do hysteroscopic DNC along with lab repair?
Hysteroscopic DNC with lap repair. See, you can do anything. People also do in a mix. They try hysteroscopic if they can remove all without rupture of uterus. Because if you are taking the patient in hysteroscopic or DNC approach, there is always a risk that there may be perforation. So if perforation occurs, then laparoscopy is important. But if you have put the scope and you are trained in laparoscopy, then why you will juggle around, do this, that, you will straight do that job in half an hour to 1 hour. But if you are doing if you have planned according to patient hysteroscopic approach, so remember, there is always a risk of perforation and rupture, then you will require laparoscopy. If you can do hysteroscopic, you can do with DNC, you are reasonably sure you have removed all pregnancy tissue, patient is cured. It is minimally invasive. But if you think that there is perforation or you may not be able to do a complete job, then laparoscopy. But in a case which is appropriate, like have big tissue burden, trophoblast burden, straight laparoscopy. Once she starts bleeding, then again you have to hurry up. So one approach, if it is standard, it is always a good idea.
Okay. So the next question is from Dr. Ramani Devi. She's asking how to do vaginal excision of scar atopic.
This is a very good question. Ramani herself is a gifted surgeon and a esteemed colleague. People have done, and number of large studies are in the large number of cases are in the literature. That what do they do? As we do vaginal hysterectomy, open the anterior pouch, dissect the bladder, and then through vagina remove the scar ectopic and repair. So all those people who are very good with vaginal, non-descent vaginal, or with this pouch opening, there is absolutely no issue. They should go ahead with that approach. Since we are laparoscopic surgeons for decades now, we're doing everything laparoscopically, we are more comfortable. So it is a question of your training and what procedure you are very well versed with.
Okay, so the next question is from Dr. Navneet Thakkar. He is from Chandigarh. Role of balloon tamponade in controlling bleeding in endogenic cases.
Very good question. I think it was in some slide and I think I missed out reading it. And thank you for reminding. Anything like you do TCRE, you do hysteroscopic myomectomy. This balloon tamponade is a very, very effective way to take care of bleeding from the endometrial canal. Even we have learned now in PPS, we put these condoms. What is it? It is a balloon tamponade. So dear, you have asked a very good question. If your patient is bleeding at the end, balloon tamponade is a very good idea. But with increasing experience, they don't bleed. If you have removed all the tissue properly and done nice suturing, hardly ever we require. But if your patient is bleeding, balloon tamponade is a very good way to reduce, at least control hemorrhage less.
Yeah, so the next
but
question.
For correctly doing that, you have to have a 12 or 14 French catheter, inflate with 7 to 10 cc, leave it in place at least for 24 hours. Next question.
Yeah, so the next question is.
I'm very happy colleagues are asking such lovely, pertinent, practical questions.
There are lots of there. Yeah. So the next question is from Dr. Alpana Kansal. She is from Ghaziabad. Does thickness of scar will tell us that it should be scar pregnancy?
Very good question. Scar pregnancy you will see on ultrasound. Thickness of scar has very, very big importance in management of case. One, so many people are giving different guidelines because nothing is till now there are no standard guidelines because there are varied presentations, but by and large, if it is less than 5 mm, you start worrying. Some people have given the criteria of 3 millimeter. If scar thickness is less than 3 millimeter, don't go for hysteroscopic approach because there is higher risk of perforation and bladder injury and risk. So scar thickness is very important in making your decision in management plan and knowing how much is the risk of perforation. If it is less than 3 millimeter, you do hysteroscopic resection. Even in a isthmocele, there is higher chance that you may lead to perforation.
Yeah.
In that case, laparoscopic approach is better. So the scar thickness is important for prognosticating and management plan. Thicker the scar, lesser is the risk.
Yeah. So the next question is from Dr. Shubha. She is from Bangalore. Which all cases are to be diagnosed clinically as isthmos?
I praised you, Tejas, isthmocele.
Isthmocele because causes of isthmocele.
causes of isthmocele are, number one, you do cesarean, then only isthmocele will be formed. So number one cause is previous cesarean section. Number two cause is multiple previous cesarean sections. More you do scarring, more you fiddle in that area, higher is the risk of isthmocele. A very important observation in literature is, but in my cases, I think I'll review all the cases with the files. Retroverted uterus is a reason for isthmocele because in retroverted uterus, the vascularity of the anterior segment goes down. This is the theory in the literature. We have to confirm, refute, or confirm with our data. So retroverted uterus is, you do cesarean, is higher risk for development of isthmocele because they say that the anterior wall gets ischemic. And thirdly, all these suturing techniques, your procedure, and even if no risk factor is there, it can have. But one more thing I tell my fellows and residents, that take care of angles very nicely. Many times you should go beyond angle when you are suturing during cesarean, because the angles, if they are weak, again there is isthmocele. So these are the factors, high risk, and then patient diabetic, poor tissue healing, hysterotomy. These are the risk factors.
Okay, so we move on to the next question. The next question is from Dr. Rekha Vaish. She is from Greater Noida.
Mhm.
What should be told to the patient once she has been operated for CS ectopic to be careful in her next pregnancy, and also after how much time in between the surgery and to plan the next pregnancy?
Very good question. I think this is the excellent question she has asked because it was not covered in the lecture properly. First, I will take her, what is the risk? See, it depends on the person who has corrected the cesarean scar ectopic. Believe me, over the years, doing this again and again, I have improved so much. So we have to really standardize the procedure of repair of cesarean scar. And I was all the time emphasizing, remove the scar, freshen the edges, remove the isthmocele, give nice 2-layer closure, don't leave any pouching. So this is very important. And second was, how much should be the time gap? See, nobody knows. The problem is nowadays patients come at 36, 37, 38, and they are so desperate to again conceive. The time bomb is ticking, fertility people are delaying so much for various reasons. So at least 6 months should be there. At least 6 months to 1 year, so that the scar is strong enough. Third part of her question was, how much is the risk? Once there is cesarean scar ectopic, she's always at risk of cesarean scar ectopic. It depends how good a repair you have done, but still. And then most important thing to tell the patient, whenever you become pregnant again, get your ultrasound as early, get it repeated, so that we ensure whether nidation is in the upper segment or in the scar area. Early diagnosis is key to success. That much is in our hand.
So the moving on to the next question.
Now there are more questions.
Yeah, there are about 60 questions. Yeah.
So what is the
Yeah.
plan?
We will take more. This it's 4:10, right? We'll do it till 4:15, and the rest
Okay.
questions we will answer by mail.
It is a pleasure. People are asking very, very important questions. I'm enjoying teaching.
Yeah. So the next question is from Dr. Mona Bansal from Karnal.
Mhm.
Precautions to be taken during LSCS to avoid scar ectopic.
Yes, Mona, I gave all the precautions. Patient should not be, start with antenatal. Your patient should not be anemic. Anemic tissue is not a good tissue for good healing. So take care of diabetes, avoid infections, and all the technical minutities I taught, that you should be careful in suturing. Don't use too much cautery. Don't do too much locking. And healthy fresh tissue and inverting the first layer, giving a thicker scar. These are the ways to prevent scar ectopic. Correct technique. But even in spite of using correct technique, I have seen very, very senior people doing, and patients land up. So 100% you cannot blame, but at least you can take precautions, high risk factors you can alleviate, starting with correcting her anemia in pregnancy. Coming to this Paras Hospital, Gurgaon, I have seen anemia is so rampant. It is just 20 kilometers from Delhi. What is in the periphery? God knows. 70 to 80% girls are so anemic. In pregnancy, 6-7 gram is so common. It's a shame on us obstetricians. Years I kept teaching prevent anemia, prevent anemia. In my Foxy, this thing I took prevention. Please give liberally iron to your patients and deworm. It will go a long way rather than doing some hi-fi surgeries. So many patients are anemic, and anemia is a big risk factor for all complications.
Okay, so the next question is from Shubhadeep Basak from Kolkata. What are the preventive steps to be taken during routine CS so as to lessen the chances of future scar atopic?
Yes, term cesarean and lower segment, if not well formed, be careful not to give very, very low scar. As we discussed that the decidua is very nice preventive against that fibrosis and sticky thing. And proper suture material. Nobody knows what is proper suture material. Presently, we are using Vicryl. Gone are the days of chromic catgut. Some colleagues argue with me chromic catgut would be better, but there is absolutely no literature. Maybe
Okay, so
further
the
research will show what is the ideal suture material.
okay,
And not to become pregnant too fast after cesarean section. Patients don't listen. They become pregnant within next 2-3 months. The scar has not healed properly. That scar is high risk for cesarean scar ectopic.
yeah. So the next question is, ma'am, in your experience, how many cases have laparoscopically or converted to open method?
Not a single one, but beta, I am doing laparoscopy for 25, 30 years, trained around 800 people, and my life has gone in endoscopy, but never shy away from opening the converting the case. Patient safety is most important. Patient safety is most important. If you find it difficult, you convert. But let me tell you, with increasing experience, these doing scar ectopic, stomach seal repair, doing endometriosis, they are easier with laparoscopy because the vision is so good. You see all the vessels properly. When you put the scope, the area is so area friendly, the scope's view. In laparotomy, you keep struggling going below the symphysis pubis. But then for that, you have to train yourself in laparoscopy, more so in suturing, and nothing is difficult. You youngsters are so smart nowadays. In our times, it took us so long to establish techniques. Now things are standardized, and we regularly conduct training programs and show all these videos and things. So take help of standardized procedures. They will reduce your learning curve a lot.
Yeah. So the next question, I think this should be the final question, from Anarao Palaskar from Aurangabad. Is there a correlation with number of layers of closure during cesarean section?
Yes, yes, yes. See, the literature came single layer closure is enough. I think that led to this whole lot of cesarean scar ectopics. I strongly believe there is not very clear cut, but the evidence is emerging. You should close the cesarean scar in 2 layers properly. Second layer should be covering Lambert so that the scar thickness is more. Single layer closure, I stopped in my department and here at Paras Hospital also. I think that is a predisposing factor for cesarean scar ectopic.
Okay, ma'am. We'll end session over here because of the time constraint. We will not be able to answer the rest of the
No, you
questions.
cannot end. I would like to thank my parent organization Foxy. I would like to thank Dr. Alpesh Gandhi and Dr. Sunil for organizing. They did so many phone calls. They are doing such a wonderful job. And thirdly, I would like to thank Doc Mode. And fourthly, most important, that Tejas and what is that girl this age? We forget names. She was very, very good. What is her name, Tejas? The other girl who is helping me?
Asma Sheikh.
Asma bothered so much in the beginning of this thing because my videos are always on very heavy files. They were not running. The Tejas there immediately took curving measures. So last but not the least, so much of audience and so many questions. I feel very happy that people were sitting with a mind to learn and with a mind to discuss. And we also learned from you people. Your questions give us so much of insight and thinking about further improving things. And thank you everybody for being with me. And courtesy lockdown, we are doing so many webinars. All have nice evening. Thank you.